Everybody, my name is Timothy John Bruso, and today I'll be interviewing my father about his basketball career and his time playing professional basketball in South Korea. Thank you. What is your name?
My name is Paul Brian Bruso.
What is your profession?
My profession, I am a chief financial officer for smaller tech companies.
Cool. What was college like? What was your experience in that?
My experience in college was great. As you know, I played basketball in college and really enjoyed it. I went to school in San Diego, a very competitive conference, the West Coast Conference. And, I really loved basketball growing up and playing in high school and then in college. So for me, it was the sports was a big part of my college experience, as well as school. Academically, I was in business programs. I was in the business program at the University of San Diego. I enjoyed all the classes. I graduated with my degree in business and went on to do my master's in business administration. So college for me was a lot of athletics, a lot of academics, enjoyed the city of San Diego, enjoyed the beach, met a lot of good people, and really had a good time.
Yeah, how was it like playing sport at the college level and professional level?
Yeah, so University of San Diego is a Division I school, so it's the most competitive division in college sports or athletics, and so it was always very challenging. A lot of very good athletes. All the members of those teams in Division I come, with the best high school players around the country. So it was always very competitive, which pushed you to get better and better. So I enjoyed it. Our team didn't have a ton of success. We never went to the NC2A tournament. We did do well in our WCC tournament in 2 seasons, but never won the actual league. So we had a modicum of success, but it wasn't mostly about that for me. It was about my teammates getting better every year and getting to a point where I was able to be drafted to play for a league in South Korea.
How is it trying to balance school and doing basketball in college?
It's a lot. I mean, with the academics and athletics, I mean, at that level in college, you're required to practice and train pretty much year round. So it's pretty extensive. At the same time, I saw a lot of people who worked their way through college. And so for me, I kind of looked at it like a job, but a job that I really enjoyed doing. So it was definitely time consuming, but at the same time, I wouldn't have changed it for anything.
How is your college scholarship, or did you have one?
Yeah, I had a full scholarship, for 4 years. So I did not pay for any of my school, books, lodging. Everything was paid for by my scholarship.
Okay, what was your favorite part about playing basketball over your career?
Favorite part about playing basketball throughout my whole career?
Just like the whole thing.
I would just say what basketball taught me, right? It taught me to be a good teammate. It taught me to be disciplined, to train and to work harder. And it taught me competition. And that, at the end of the day, if you want to succeed, you've got to get up every day and you've got to practice and you got to continue to hone your craft. And so I really enjoyed the competition part of basketball. And I also enjoyed, my teammates. I made lifelong friends in high school, college, and I even still keep in touch with the individual I played with when I was over in South Korea. So, when you share those experiences on the court, it's something that stays with you. So I think I enjoy a lot of those things about basketball.
Do you remember how you were recruited to play in Korea?
Yeah. So when I finished my college career at University of San Diego, I was thinking I'd known other people to go play overseas and play basketball after college. I was undersized, so I wasn't going to play in the NBA. At my position, I was a power forward. So someone at 6'7" power forward doesn't you don't see a lot of those in the NBA. So I knew I wasn't going to be playing in the NBA, but I did get contacted by a couple agents. Actually, these Korean agents out of Los Angeles had contacted me and invited me to play in which was a draft camp that was in Philadelphia during the summer. And that camp effectively was a draft camp in which hundreds of players showed up competing to be drafted into that Korean basketball league. So we played for 2 days. I played probably 10 or 12 games when I was there over 2 days. And then they had a draft, and I was selected as the third pick in the Korean Basketball League
That's nice.
draft.
How is it traveling at such a young age around the world to play basketball?
Great. I mean, it brought me places I probably wouldn't have gone to when I was younger. Our high school team visited Australia one summer to play games. I visited Florida to play games in high school. When I was in college, I played all over the U.S., New York City, Chicago. We played Kansas, which was in Lawrence, Kansas. We played Iowa State, which is in Ames, Iowa. So, New Jersey. So I played all over the country. So places I probably wouldn't have gone to unless I was playing basketball. So it was neat to travel. I played in Australia, I played in Japan when I was with the Korean team. So it was really cool to see different places. I wish I would have had more time to hang out in those places. When you're playing basketball games, you're pretty much practicing and then going to games and playing in games. So you don't get to necessarily see the cities as much as you want to, but it was great to travel and play basketball.
What really amazed you about Korea?
I would say what amazed me. It's an interesting culture there. It's a very traditional culture. I was there in 1997, and in the 90s, I would say the Korean culture, South Korean culture, because this is South Korea, obviously not North Korea, which is a communist country, but South Korea was kind of transitioning from the older generation to the newer generation. The older generation was actually relatively poor. The South Korean people were actually enslaved by the Japanese people for hundreds of years, and then ended hundreds of years ago. But at the same time, there was always still some of that kind of culture of a kind of a poor, downtrodden culture. The older generation still hung on to. The younger generations were very, I would say, capitalistic, right? So they loved nice. They really kind of, the U.S. has such an influence on these countries, and so the U.S. in its capitalism and in its products really were something that the younger generation really aspired for. So it was interesting to see the dichotomy between the older generations, which were way more conservative, and I would say just used to not buying a lot of things, and then the younger generation really being into wanting to be out there, wanting to make money, wanting to buy nice products, and really enjoy more material things. So that was an interesting thing for me to see, because you don't see that in the US necessarily, but you would see it there. Other than that, I mean, the town of Seoul, we didn't live in Seoul. We lived in a town called Gwangju, which was about 2 hours south. But the city of Seoul is massive. I think there's 20 plus million people that live there. There's these massive high-rise apartment buildings. It's a big sprawling town, but it's a very busy town. So it was kind of neat to see. And we stayed there quite a bit because most of our games were there. But to see this massive town, I mean, I came from a small town in South Lake Tahoe and never really seen something of that size. So it was pretty interesting.
Did you ever see the effects of the Korean crisis in 1997?
Yeah, so their currency devalued or depreciated by 50% while I was there. So fortunately, I was paid in US dollars and not the local currency. So the economy definitely did have challenges while I was there in 1997. And, it was not easy for locals to afford to go to the basketball games. So I remember asking one of the coaches, who said the attendance at games was down quite a bit the year I was there because of the fact that the economy was not doing well and people didn't have the same discretionary income that they had the year before. So there definitely was an impact of that on the country while I was there.
Your base salary was 70K. This is your dad said in an article. Your
Yeah.
base salary was 70K, and if you could have got a bonus if your teams made playoffs. Did the Korean crisis ever affect that money?
That was a guaranteed contract, so it did not. So they were contractually obligated to pay me, so it did not impact. If I would have been paid in local currency, Korean, which is the Korean won, then I would have been severely impacted for myself, because that money I would take back to the U.S. and I would convert it to U.S. dollars. So thankfully, I got paid in U.S. dollars, and so there was no impact, and the team definitely made good on its contract to pay me.
You ever feel tension between North and South Korea while you were there?
So what was interesting is, Seoul is near the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, right? So between North and South, which is a 20-mile zone where no one's allowed to enter, right? No, you can't. The North can't come into it. The South can't come into it. So we never really visited the DMZ, but you could tell that people there were a lot of people that had left North Korea, right? They defected into South Korea. So there's definitely a lot of history, and there's a lot of families that have families both in South Korea and in North Korea. I mean, for me as an American, again, I was practicing twice a day, playing 3 to 4 games a week. So there wasn't a lot of time for us to really, kind of get into the local culture and understand the history. I mean, we had an interpreter that lived with us. So we would see, excuse me, what was interesting to see is they had a lot of public demonstrations. So, for example, in our local hometown of Gwangju, times myself and the American and our interpreter would go downtown to get lunch or to get dinner, and then he would quickly turn us around because they would be setting up for these massive demonstrations, or I guess it would be protests, where you had a lot of anti-government factions that would protest in the streets against not just the South Korean government, but also the government of the North, trying to get the South Korean government to do more to bring back more of the people that are stuck in the North.
And my last question is, why didn't you play the NBA?
Well, like I said earlier, for my position, so I played kind of a power forward center position, and most of those guys that play those roles in the NBA are 6'10" plus, right? So I was a little bit undersized. If I were a shooting guard, or if I were more of an outside threat, then there may have been opportunity for me to play in the NBA. But I just wasn't that type of player. I was around a basket type player, rebounds, and kind of post position play.
I'd like to say no thanks to my dad. He's been a huge support in my life, and I'm really thankful for him. Thank you for watching this video.